Today we're going to be adding mixed numbers. So we talked about mixed numbers and improper fractions yesterday. Today we're going to be adding them together. So let's kind of look at a picture just to make sure we have a good idea what mixed numbers are, okay? And mixed numbers and improper fractions and kind of how they work. So I have two numbers here. Let's say that this represents one number and this represents another number, and I want to add them together. Now I want you to notice one of the same rules applies that it does when you're adding fractions in general. Denominators have to be the same. So if you look at these ones, each of these boxes is cut into 3, okay? So these are all thirds, all right? So what I have here is I have 2 wholes, okay, and 2 thirds. So that is my mixed number. That's what this represents right here, is 2 and 2 thirds. And I'm going to add to that 2 and 2 thirds this amount here, okay? So this amount here, I have 1 whole, okay, plus another 2 thirds. So I have 1 and 2 thirds. So I have to add 2 and 2 thirds, and I want to add it to 1 and 2 thirds and see what my total amount is. Okay, when you're adding mixed numbers, what you do is you add the fraction part of the number first, okay, and hopefully this will make a little sense. So I have 2 thirds here and 2 thirds here. So if I were to set this up like this, I go 2 and 2 thirds plus 1 and 2 thirds. So we're going to add fractions. We're going to add them vertically, okay? So we add the fractions first. I like to call that the fractions place, because remember when you're adding regular numbers, you always add the smallest place first and work your way this way, okay? So the same thing's going to apply for fractions. So I have 2 thirds and 2 thirds. My denominator is the same, which is cool, okay, because that means I can add them. If they were thirds and fifths, I wouldn't be able to add them. Okay, remember, got to have the same denominator. All right, so you just add the numerators. So I'm going to add the 2 plus the 3. I'm sorry, the 2 plus the 2, which is 4. I'm going to get 4 thirds. All right, and then how many wholes do I have? I have 3 wholes. So I have 3 and 4 thirds, but you're going to notice here that this 4 thirds is more than 1. And in this picture, you can see it. Because if I add the 2 fractions together, if I add this one plus this one, the 2 thirds plus the 2 thirds, I can take one of the thirds from here and I can add it to here. And what I'm going to get is 1 whole and 1 third. So what that 4 thirds really is 1 whole and 1 third. So what I have to do is I have to add that whole to this side and then leave that third over there. So what I really have is a total of 1, 2, 3, 4 wholes and 1 third when I add them together. And so if you were thinking like regular math, what I was doing is I was carrying the extra over to the ones place. All right, so let's look at one or a couple without some pictures. All right, so let's do something like 3 and 5, no, it's kind of a lot. Let's say 3 and 2, 6, plus 2 and 1 third. I seem to like thirds today. Now remember that we can't, so you have to first check your denominators. We have to add the fractions first, but we can't add those fractions if the denominator's not the same. So we got to go through and find the least common multiple and change that denominator, okay? So we find the multiples of 6. Oh, wait a minute, and the multiples of 3. I already know it's going to be, okay, 3, 6, 9. I already know the least common multiple is 6, okay? So I don't have to change 2 6 because it's already 6. So I've got to change 1 third to 6. So I say, well, 3 times 2 equals 6, and whatever I do to the bottom, I have to do to the top. 1 times 2 is 2, so 1 third is the same thing as 2 sixths. So I'm going to change that to 2 sixths, and now I can add them. 2 and 2 is 4, 4 sixths, okay? 3 and 2 is 5. Now I'm going to check here. This fraction, if it's 1 or bigger, I'm going to have to add it to that side, but I don't see anything. It's less than 1. That's cool. It's a regular fraction. It's not an improper fraction. But I do always have to make sure my answer is in simplest form. So I do have to check my fraction and see if I can make 4 sixths using smaller numbers. So simplest form, I go over here, when I find my answer and I say, is there a number I can divide both 4 and 6 by? I could list out the factors of 4 and 6, but because I know my times tables, I know they can both be divided by 2, because 2 times 2 is 4 and 2 times 3 is 6. So if I divide them both by 2, I'm going to get 2/3. So 4/6 is the same thing as 2/3. So this answer in simplest form is 5 2/3. Okay, so there's a couple things, all these things that we've been learning are kind of adding together and building on top of themselves. So we kind of have to remember all these steps as we're moving along. All right, subtraction. It's the same procedure, the same thing. You're just subtracting instead of adding, so make sure you're paying attention to your signs. So let's see if I have something that's going to come out and not cause me to have to borrow. Let's go with 5 6 minus 2 1/4. Okay? So again, yes, I'm now purposely making these so they don't have the same denominator so that you remember how to change the denominator. I have 5 6 and I have 1/4. I always start by adding or subtracting the fractions and then working my way to the right, just like you would a regular number. So I need to know, I got to switch these so they have the same denominator. So I need to find my multiples to figure out what the smallest number they share is. So it goes 6, 12, 18. I'm going to stop there and do a few for 4. 4, 8, 12. Oh, there it is. The smallest number they share is 12. So I can change them both so that they have denominator of 12. And I'm going to do it right here since I'm changing both of them. So they both have to have a denominator of 12. Remember, when you change the denominator, you have to change the numerator by the same amount. So I asked myself 4 times what equals 12? 4 times 3, so I have to multiply top by 3. So that's 3/12. 6 times what equals 12? 6 times 2, so I have to multiply the top by 2. So I get 10/12. So these are the two that I'm going to add. Oh, or I'm sorry, I'm going to subtract. Check your sign. Okay, so 10 minus 3 is 7. We have 7/12. 6 minus 2 is 4. So we have 4 and 7/12. We should always make sure that our answer is simplest form. So is there anything that 7 and 12 can both be divided by? Let's see, what are my factors of 7 and what are my factors of 12? 1 times 7, 2, that's it. It's the only way you can make 7. 1 times 12, 2 times 6, 3 times 4. The only number they share is 1, so they're already in simplest form. Sweet, done. So my answer is 4 and 7/12.